Let's get you more now on South Sudan. Regional bloc IGAD has called for rebel leader Riek Machar to be freed from house arrest. He's under house arrest in South Africa, but the regional bloc says he must renounce violence before his release. The announcement is being considered as another sign of increased diplomatic pressure on the South Sudanese government to bring to an end fighting that's been raging in the country for years. Machar has been under house arrest in South Africa since 2016. IGAD also says Machar should not relocate to any country neighbouring South Sudan. Machar was once part of government as vice president, but violence broke out between his supporters and those who backed President Salva Kiir. Let's get you more on that story now. I'm joined live from Johannesburg by CGTN's Angelo Coppola. Angelo, what's the latest on Riek Machar's house arrest in South Africa? Any word from South African authorities on when that will be lifted?
Well, as of late last night, Machar was still being held against his will. No one wants to comment on this matter, though. The state security agency, who's most likely responsible for guarding Machar, won't be drawn into the conversation. They continue to pass the ball on to the International Relations Department, who tell me that Machar isn't under house arrest, but that that's the South African government, are actually just taking care of him. But there's still the unanswered question, though. For instance, at no point do we know under what local law Machar is being held or looked after. And at this stage, we don't know when he will be released. And that's because there's no up-to-date official government position or announcement on Machar just yet. So it's early days in terms of his release. We're going to have to watch quite carefully what's going to be happening in the next day or two, Panina.
Yes, Angela, what about Machar's constitutional rights and the South African constitution? Is there concern that either has been violated given how long Machar has been under house arrest?
Well, Panina, it's not even a question about duration. Are his human rights being violated? Well, we reached out to a prominent international human rights organization, and it seems that this particular potato is a bit too hot to handle because I was told it's complicated and political. But on a basic level, if someone is held against their will and unable to move around freely, that would be illegal in terms of general human rights norms internationally. We are led to believe, though, that there are no arrest warrants that have been issued against Machar anyway. So there was an attempt, as you know, in 2016 to arrest him by the South Sudanese before he fled the country. But South Africa's constitution is a little vague on foreign nationals and whether they are covered by the country's constitution, Panina.
Angela, you've been in contact with Machar's team. How has he responded to South Sudan not wanting him to be part of the peace process there?
Well, we were speaking to sources close to Machar, and they tell me that the language of the communique that was issued yesterday, they refer to it as Juba language. The sources claim that the Juba regime have in fact obstructed the peace process. It's common cause, we are led to believe, that the South Sudanese government have refused or had refused to sign the Declaration of Principles. That's according to Machar's people. Meanwhile, the government forces are still attacking those opposition forces. They're emphatic, though, that's the Machar team, that the communique is, and I quote, rubbish. And this is while the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, which is IGAD, insists that Machar must renounce violence when talks to end the war continue in Addis. So there's no question that Machar's team expect him to be part of that peace process. And in fact, on the question of where Machar will be moved to, my sources tell me that the offer would be the same as Machar being moved from one prison to another. And this is a clear reference to the situation Machar finds himself in South Africa. He's too scared to speak to anyone, and he's under close guard in what euphemistically is called house arrest. Panina?
All right, Angela, interesting developments. Thank you very much for that update. Angela Coppola in Johannesburg.